iPhone OS 1, iOS 1, 2007. Debuting in 2007, Apple created the first smartphone with a fully featured web browser, email, texting, and a small productivity software suite. iPhone OS 1, the first version of iOS, is one of the most significant achievements in computing history. The notion of using a touchscreen, an on-screen keyboard, and essentially enjoying a computer-like experience on a handheld device was unique to the first iPhone. The first version of iOS didn't feature the App Store. Instead, Steve Jobs envisioned a third-party ecosystem of web apps for the iPhone's content. iPhone OS 2, iOS 2, 2008. iPhone OS 2 launched alongside the iPhone 3G, which was the successor to the original iPhone. The 3G description refers to the device's support for 3G networks, which were relatively new at the time. The App Store is the most critical feature for the iPhone OS 2. Apple's second-generation mobile operating system also added support for Microsoft ActiveSync, allowing corporate users enhanced connectivity with popular desktop apps. Other features such as enhancements to Mail, Apps, Calculator, and Contacts rounded out a hefty release. iPhone OS 3, iOS 3, 2009. iPhone OS 3 is the final version bearing this awkward moniker. Users finally gained the ability to cut, copy, and paste text virtually anywhere on the iPhone. This version also debuted Spotlight, a powerful search tool once only available on the Mac. Apple also allowed users to send MMS multimedia attachments and a convenient voice memos app to its mobile operating system. iOS 4, 2010. iOS 4 was a radical departure from previous versions. An iPhone 4 running iOS 4 could play music in a background thread while another app runs in the foreground, allowing users to enjoy rudimentary multitasking. Users could also open apps while on phone calls, as well as switch between apps. iOS 4 cached apps so they could quickly come back to life, almost as if they were running in the background. iOS 4 made it easier to work with documents with the addition of system-wide spell checking. Game Center, FaceTime, and the addition of the 5x digital zoom made iOS more playful, social, and creative. iOS 5, 2011. The release packed a wide array of complex features to Apple's popular mobile operating system. Siri, Apple's intelligent personal assistant, launched alongside iOS 5 and the iPhone 4S. iCloud, iMessage were major advancements for Apple. iCloud's storage capabilities provided much-needed revenues for Apple, as customers paid monthly fees for cloud-based storage. With iOS 5, users could make do with cheaper, low-capacity iPhones and purchase a subscription for online storage. Apple profited whether the user bought an inexpensive or a top-of-the-line model with the highest storage capacity. iOS 6, 2012. Apple Maps was the biggest change in iOS 6. Although it was met with harsh reception, most of the problems surrounded superfluous features, such as its 3D flyover view, which rendered buildings as if they were melting. Apple Maps was more reliable at launch than many built-in automotive navigation systems and aftermarket GPS navigation units. Siri became more capable in iOS 6. It gained the ability to make reservations, read movie reviews, interact with Twitter, and most importantly, launch apps. Apple added a new podcast app in iOS 6, which was highly defective at launch. Panoramic photos made their way into the iPhone's camera with iOS 6. Apple's mobile operating system also gained the ability to reply to calls with canned messages. Also, FaceTime gained the ability to operate over cellular connections, making video chat more portable and accessible. iOS 7, 2013. Like iOS 6, iOS 7 was met with substantial resistance upon its release. Unlike iOS 6 though, the cause of unhappiness among iOS 7 users wasn't the things that didn't work, rather it was because things had changed. After the firing of Scott Forstall, iOS development was overseen by Johnny Ive, Apple's head of design, who had previously only worked on hardware. This version of iOS ushered in a major overhaul to the user interface, designed to make it more modern. While the design was indeed more modern, its small, thin fonts were hard to read for some users, and frequent animations caused motion sickness for others. The design of the current iOS is actually derived from the changes made in iOS 7. After Apple made improvements and users became accustomed to the changes, complaints subsided. iOS 8, 2014. More consistent and stable operation returned to iOS in version 8.0. With the radical changes of the last two versions now in the past, Apple once again focused on delivering major new features. Among these features was its secure, contactless payment system Apple Pay and the Apple Music subscription service with the iOS 8.4 update. There was also continued improvements to the iCloud platform with the addition of the Dropbox-like iCloud Drive, iCloud Photo Library, and iCloud Music Library. iOS 9, 2015. After a few years of major changes to the interface and technical foundation of iOS, many observers began to charge that iOS was no longer the stable, dependable, solid performer it had once been. They suggested that Apple should focus on shoring up the foundation of the OS before adding new features, which is exactly what the company did with iOS 9. While it did add some new features, this release was generally aimed at solidifying the foundation of the OS for the future. Major improvements were delivered in speed, responsiveness, stability, and performance on older devices. iOS 9 proved to be an important refocusing that laid the groundwork for the bigger improvements delivered in iOS 10 and 11. Which iOS version do you like the most? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. iOS 10, 2016. The ecosystem Apple built around iOS has long been referred to as a walled garden because it's a very pleasant place to be inside, but it's hard to gain access. This was reflected in the many ways Apple locked down the interface of iOS and the options it gave to apps. The major themes of iOS 10 were the interoperability and customization. Apps could now communicate directly with each other on a device, allowing one app to use some features from another without opening the second app. Siri became available to third-party apps in new ways. There were even apps built into iMessage now. Beyond that, users now had new ways to customize their experiences, from being able to delete built-in apps to new animations and effects that punctuate their text messages. iOS 11, 2017. iOS was originally developed to run on the iPhone. Since then, it's been expanded to support the iPod Touch and iPad. In iOS 11, the emphasis shifted from the iPhone to the iPad. While iOS 11 contains lots of improvements for the iPhone, its major focus is turning the iPad Pro series models into legitimate laptop replacements for some users. This is done through a series of changes designed to make iOS running on an iPad a lot more like a desktop operating system. These changes include all new drag and drop support, split-screen apps and multiple workspaces, a file browser app, and support for notation and handwriting with the Apple Pencil. iOS 12, 2018. The new features and improvements added in iOS 12 aren't as excessive or revolutionary as in previous OS updates. Instead, iOS 12 focused more on refining commonly used features and adding wrinkles that improve how people use their devices. Some of the key features of iOS 12 included improvements to Siri, like Siri shortcuts, enhanced augmented reality with ARKit 2, and giving users and parents ways to monitor and control their device use with screen time. iOS 13, 2019. Perhaps the biggest change introduced with iOS 13 is that the OS no longer runs on the iPad. That's due to the release of iPadOS. That's a new OS dedicated to making the iPad a more useful productivity device and a potential laptop replacement. It's based on iOS 13 and has many of the same features, but also adds iPad-specific items. Beyond that, iOS 13 shores up some core features, including launching apps faster, unlocking devices with Face ID faster, and overhauling pre-installed apps like Reminders, Notes, Safari, and Mail. The dark mode may be the most obvious new feature, but the changes range much wider than that and further bolster the already strong OS. iOS 14, 2020. There's no single major change or theme to the changes introduced with iOS 14. Instead, iOS 14 is a collection of numerous small and medium-sized changes to the user interface, features, and overall ease of use that add up to making the experience of using an iPhone even better. Maybe the most notable changes are around customization, thanks to the addition of home screen widgets, the ability to choose default apps in some cases, and improved privacy controls. iOS 15, 2021. Much like iOS 14, iOS 15 is more of a collection of improvements to the iPhone platform than it is a themed release. Generally speaking, iOS 15 moves forward with several important things Apple has been working on for a number of releases, increases security and privacy, blocks more ad tracking, improves Siri and the camera app, and much more. Some of the biggest steps forward are influenced by the recent remote work trend. Features in that area include improvements to FaceTime audio, support for FaceTime conferencing on the web and Android, improvements to the Messages app, and more. iOS 16. iOS 16 is the 16th and upcoming major release for the iOS mobile operating system developed by Apple for its iPhone line of products. It was announced at the company's Worldwide Developers Conference on June 6, 2022, as the successor to iOS 15. For more evolution content, visit our channel and watch our videos.